We're going to be hosting these every other month on, where's my notes? I just had them. Okay, very much. Okay, my name is Myrtle October. Thank you all so much for coming. And I thought I had my notes on me, but that's okay. It's in there.
It's in here.
It's in here. Thank you. We want to thank Backstrews for sponsoring this event. I'll stand over here because I realize we're videotaping. Sorry. Backstrews for sponsoring this event. Backstrews is an organization supporting community vaccine equity. We have these brochures in 3 different languages, English, Spanish, and as well Creole. What we do and what we talk about is helping people to learn, decide, and act. It's not to enforce you to do anything specific. It's just help you to make a good choice and an informed decision about vaccines and boosters. So if you log into the website, you can find all the people that work with Backstrews there, including myself. But more importantly, you'll know exactly where to get good, helpful, accurate information, because we are funded by the CDC. So that is important that we keep with what they regulate, and we have regular meetings. And it's just a blessing to be a part of this organization, just to make sure there's equity among Black and brown people in Lee County, Collier County, and all the counties surrounding this area. So thank you so much for coming today. Today, the event that we're having it's a passion of mine and compassion, because I grew up with a brother who started out going to jail over really very small things. And I believe, just even looking back, and as I think about it, me and my mom and my sister and my family talk, if we'd had someone there to help us, or if we knew of resources, if we had advocacy, we know that maybe today he would be a different person. This is not a blame on any specific person or anyone. It's just that for some reason, and we've seen it so often, the statistics are definitely clear about this, people who go into jail a lot of times sometimes go back. And it's a very few amount that find their way and get really successful, like some of the speakers one of the speakers you're going to hear about today. And so I have this heart to threat. I know that sometimes these people who come out of prison or jail can seem like a threat to society. But I know for a fact that with the right services, right people in place, they can become thriving citizens, people who know what they want to have clarity and give back to communities instead of taking. Right now you have some notepads in front of you and a pencil. I want you to take and jot down notes throughout this time, because everything we write can come to fruition. I believe that. If you write it, it can happen. I want you to leave those notepads here, because I'm going to go back and read those ideas. There's food. You can get up at any time you want to get more. Please eat it. It's okay. It's something to drink. You can raise your hand anytime, because like I said, it is Chew and Chat. We are going to give people the space to speak. The other thing I want to talk to you about is that I'm an insurance agent. I give help to people in the community for Medicare as well. Brian Franklin does as well. And I want you to know that if you need somebody, we are here for you to answer questions regarding Medicare Advantage. They have extended it to March 31st. And that is a shameless plug, because listen, we want to help people. That's what we're here for. In addition to that, I'm going to give the floor really quick, I forgot to mention this, to the Sheriff's Office. They have come, and I wasn't sure if they were coming, but thank God they were able to find space in their schedule. So I'm pulling them into my 10 minutes instead of me changing the entire agenda. We're going to have the Sheriff's Office speak for 5 minutes, and then Brian is going to go ahead and take care of the rest of the program after that. And you're going to hear some great people. And we are recording. We are live. We will be live. We'll be taking pictures. If you have any troubles with that, just, I don't know, because that's what we're doing. I didn't do any waivers, so I apologize for that. But if you're okay with that, just I want to make sure it's very transparent that that is what we're doing. Thank you so much for listening. Again, my name is Myrtle October. You can find me on all social media platforms that way. Myrtle October, just like the month and like the beach. Thank you so much for coming. It does give me a great pleasure to be here. And I do thank you. Like I said, if it were 2 people in the room, I'm just grateful that you guys showed up today for this conversation, because it is very important, not only to me, but to a lot of people in the community. Thank you so much.
Well, just to reiterate some of the things that Myrtle was saying, this is a conversational, so it's not just a meeting where you're getting talked to. There's an opportunity to speak back about the issue of threat to thriving, people being repopulated. First of all, I like to say that you always want to put the person beyond what they went through. So when you mention it, you say that a person who has come back to society, make sure that you put people first, even in your language. As Myrtle was saying, we're going to have the Sheriff Department do a little bit, about 5 minutes, just speaking on the topic, on what you guys have to say, and then we'll introduce some of our guest speakers. Would you guys like to stand?
Do you want to go up there or stand here?
Let's come over here because there's a camera and I'm supposed to do that. Did you get my good side?
I got your best side.
Okay, so I work in the Lee County Jail. I am part of the reentry department, and so what we do is meet with individuals that are being released from custody within the next 45 days. So we do a little assessment with them, have a conversation, you know, what are the things that are barriers for you when it comes to returning to the community. So we just kind of try to help connect them to various resources in the community, jobs, housing, treatment programs, halfway houses, you know, give them information about where they can go to apply for benefits, where they can go if they need clothes or if they need shoes, and just different things like that. So that's kind of what I do. I specifically work with the individuals that are being sentenced, or that are sentenced and are about to get out of jail.
I do something similar. I work with what you would call high utilizer individuals, and those are people who are continuously using resources in Lee County, hospitals, mental health, Baker Act, so psychiatric facilities, etc., for a lot of different reasons. And one of the biggest barriers, I think, is that we don't have a lot of mental health housing here or services for people with mental illnesses. And then, of course, you know, the individual's not necessarily wanting to help. But it varies, so we do very similar things. I just follow them along their entire journey, and then beyond that when they're done.
Are you able to follow them once they leave jail?
At the time, we are not, due to policy.
I follow up with
out of
family members. I follow up with family members because I'm in constant communication with their family members. They have my cell phone number, so I try to be very in touch as much as I'm able without crossing any boundaries, because sometimes people get very persistent with you, and it's just, we've reached the end of what we can do here. So we have to wait. You have to wait for the legal process, unfortunately, which isn't ever as quick as we want it to be.
Do you see any resources for someone that wanted to create something in the community for mental health clients that need a home, or just, you know, maybe it's sex offenders or something like that, to place them in the proper places so they don't feel like, you know, it's always on their back, you know, it's always a target, but they can get back to living like regular people.
Yeah, so there are so many restrictions on sex offenders that it is an ongoing challenge. There are a few places, there are a few homes that we know of that we do disperse to the sex offenders, and we'll even call ahead and say, do you have housing, you know, what's the process? And in general, that individual is mostly just like, hey, if they can pay, they can stay. There are a lot more resources in Central Florida, which is not something you want to encourage someone to do. Oh, just leave, you know, but there's restrictions with how close you can be to schools. There are other properties you can't be near, so there are a lot of restrictions that in this area, it seems like a lot of the infrastructure is not easily navigatable to individuals who are convicted of sex offenses. With mental health, the main barrier for mental health is most mental health housing will not accept you if you've ever been violent. So there's castle housing, community assisted living. They're fantastic, but you can't get in if you've committed violent offenses. And unfortunately, with some serious mental illness like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, with psychotic symptoms, those people can be violent at times. They're not violent people per se, but can you imagine hearing voices in your head telling you to do X, Y, and Z, and you're not properly medicated and you're not managing well? Things happen, and it's terrible, but the majority of places do not want you in their facility. So that's a huge drawback. I think that this,
Yes, so I have a question for you guys. How often do you update the vendor list that you hear about some of the individuals when they are released? And the only reason why I'm asking is because I know sometimes when they're released, I'm one of the people who they contact. I'm not on your vendor list, but a lot of the people that's on that list, they're not answering.
Are you talking about the green book?
I just know when they get released, they get like a 2-page or a 3-page and telling them to call to ask for certain resources. It's just a lot of people on that sheet, they're not responding to them at all. So what is the protocol for updating it, and how can I possibly become a part of the vendor list?
Come talk to us after the meeting, absolutely. And we listen to a lot of their feedback. They'll tell us. They'll tell us, like, I went through your list and it was stupid and it didn't work out. Oh yeah, they have no problem being
That
very
person doesn't
honest.
exist anymore.
And we'll update it right away. But is it a process where we go through and like call every single person? No, and that's probably something we should be doing quarterly. So thank you.
Let's do this, guys. We'll do one more question for them. We'll let all of our speakers go, and then in the end, we can do some of an open floor and kind of touch base with everyone, because multiple groups might have multiple things to say on each topic. Do we have one more question for the
There's
ladies?
the lady in the back.
Miss, your program is for people who go out from jail for a few days, or for no matter what the long of the,
So is it for someone who's out for maybe like bond out, or is it for someone who's out of prison?
So we help everybody that's in jail, but individually meeting with them face to face, me and my coworker, who could not make it today, we meet with people that are, their cases resolved, their sentence, they've served their time, and they're about to get out of jail, whether it be on probation or not on probation.
Yeah, because in 2009, when in jail, I never meet you on anybody.
We were not around in 2009.
Until 20, we came around in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, ladies, you can have a seat. Can you give them a round of applause, please? So once again, this is a meeting or an event, this open discussion that's finding his identity in various ways. The intention is to educate, inform, and share ideas and collaborate to help people coming back out to the community after being in prison. With that being said, we have a speaker who can speak on the testament of going through the judicial system, specifically in Lee County, Florida. But before that, we have someone who was a leader as a CEO and entrepreneur before going through his trials and tribulation, and then creating a movement after being institutionalized for a brief period of time, fighting back, coming out, and then thriving in 1,000,001 ways, not only as a social and community leader, but as an author, as a speaker, and as a CEO and the head of a nonprofit organization. Can you guys do me a favor and give a round of applause for our first speaker, Mr. Cornell Bunting?
Thank you. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Great.
This is good. As you guys hear Brian Franklin said, my name is Cornell Bunting. I'm a published author, motivational speaker. I actually was arrested here in 2013 on 16 felony charges. I was facing 32 years to life in prison. At the time, I had a security company that was doing fairly well, but I had a lot of competitors that didn't like that I was getting all the jobs. And so to not, fast track any bit, but what that looked like after I got arrested was surreal, because I was accused of a crime that the treatment was like I was guilty. The way they approached it and the way they treated me made me even ask myself, if I did something that I didn't know I did. So the way to unfold, you know, I was in maximum security, so I was down here. Never get to see the light of day except for 1 hour a week. And I want to say it was probably about 4 months in. We had a situation where there was this fly, because I was among guys that were doing 2 life sentence, 3 life sentence. They came back in an appeal. And for me, this was really challenging because I didn't even know people get that type of sentence where they're in prison for life sentences and multiple life sentences. One of the things that the CEO told me was, you behind the glass is looked at the same way all you guys behind the glass are looked at. It doesn't matter what you did, or if you didn't do something, we're gonna treat you as you're in here as a criminal. And that was what it was. The food was terrible, and I know you guys have heard the stories and all these things. When it really kicked in and started hurting my feelings was when my kids had to come see me. And that's like them seeing me on the TV. We talked on like a phone, and they watched me through a monitor. And they could never understand why I wasn't coming home, or why I couldn't tell them when I'm coming home, because all of that was unsure. And it unfolded in such a way that, for me, it was disappointing, because even when I don't want to blame the state or whoever, but even after they realized my story was fabricated, the reason behind it was to undermine my security company, they still wanted me to take a plea deal and go to prison. Didn't really understood that. And then when they saw that I wasn't, you know, taking that route, I'm fighting it, they stretched it out. You know, we went to 17 pre-conference trial, exhausted over $400,000. I went through all my funds. And I didn't know if I was gonna make it to the trial, because my trial became the oldest trial, and so they had to do the trial. I went to the trial, and on the 3rd day of the trial, my accuser, he told on the people that paid him, you know, to do what he did to me. And so with that, I was found not guilty on all 16 charges. But you know what I've learned while I was there was, and this was something that I had to deal with when I was younger. My godparent, they had somewhat of a ranch. They had pigs, they had cows, all these different animals. And pig. And one day I was so irritated, I was like, you know, I'm gonna try to shut this pig up, push him in the corner, whatever. And I went in the pen and I was trying to move the pig. And I got out and I was so muddy. My goddad looked at me and said, what did you learn from that? I said, I didn't really learn that. And he said, well, I can tell you this. Despite what the pig was going through in there, the pig enjoyed the mud. And you went in there, it was only the pig enjoying the mud. Whatever you was doing, it wasn't gonna get you anywhere, because you can't speak their language. And for me, I realized I can't really speak the system language. But if I understand that I have a voice, and I can make attempts to show that I know what's going on, or not necessarily putting certain things out there, then I can actually make a difference. And so with that, I decided, you know what, I'm not gonna get out, and I'm not gonna fight with this system to try to, you know, help me understand why this happened the way it did, even after they found out that it was fabricated. I was writing. And so I used to write in high school, and it was like that came back to me. Like I needed to tap back into that because I had that skill. You know, I used to write for the school, and so I would buy writing pads. And in there I wrote 4 books before I came out. And I tell myself, when I get out, what I would do is try to get one of these books published. I got out, I had no money, I had child support bill on me, which didn't even make sense because I'm in jail and I was accumulating child support while I was in jail. The kid's mom put me on child support and she barely was even seeing my kids, but she was able to fabricate a story to get the system to take care of her. And then when I got out, the system wanted me to pay them back. And I said, where am I gonna get the money? They said, we don't care where you get the money. If you can't pay the money back, we're gonna take your license, and after we take your license, we're gonna put you back in jail. I'm like, this is terrible. So finally, someone at Applebee's, decided, you know what, we're gonna give him a job because he seemed like he's intelligent or whatever, and so they gave me a job there as a server. And every tip I made, I saved it, and I used it to pay back my child support, which is almost $10,000. So we did that, and I realized that my expertise and like my field of education, where I went to college, spent all this money to get these degrees, whatever, no one was hiring me because I still had that hanging over my head. It wasn't expunged from my name. So those are like the challenges I was going through, and then I just had that job, so I had a lot of time. So what I did was I said, you know what, all these stories in my head, I just want to write them out. I want to put them on paper, and I did. And then from there, my attorney said, good news, they will give you a hearing to possibly expunge the record. And that happened the following year. The record got expunged. And then 3 months later, I'm in church, fell out of my chair, and everyone was trying to figure out what happened. I died. I went into a cardiac arrhythmia. I was on the floor for 16 minutes. The only reason they didn't put me in a body bag was because the pastor was arguing with the people that was trying to put me in a bag, saying he doesn't want me to be wheeled out of this church in a bag. And in that conversation, I came back. And this was 3 months after Lion with No Roar had actually got an opportunity to be self-published by Author House. But in that journey, in that moment, and I won't go on it too much because I only got limited time, and I write about it in my book, Escaping a Life Sentence. There's a lot of stuff that unfolded that talked about my future and all these different things. But from there, I knew that my job wasn't done. I needed to reach people. I needed to tell a story because everyone has a story. And for me, my goal was, because of all the things that I saw in jail and the guys that I met from prison, I said, I want to try to help some of these young men that are now falling in these different situations and getting put in a system, and then they're just lost in the system because that's all they know. It's their environment now. So once my books kind of start taking off, and I'm just fast tracking for you guys a little bit here, I'm now at 9 books, 9 published books. And that happened from my book Lion with No Roar. We went on a tour in England, and I had a publisher said, you know what, we like what the story is, we like how you narrate it, and we want to pick up this book. We want to sign it. So they did that. They loved the way I spoke to the kids. And from there, it just, more doors open, opportunities was happening after opportunities. And then my literary agent said, hey, you need to show your readers that you can really write. And so we decided to put out my memoir. And that was #1 for like a month. And then we put out an action fiction book, which went all the way to #2. Didn't make it to #1. But then I had another book that came out after that book that went #1 as well. So I got excited, and now I was like, okay, you know what? I think I might be able to speak on what's going on. And so I had kind of did I wrote some things down in my journal, and I said, whenever I have the opportunity, I want to open an organization that will help youths to understand that there's another way, that they can add value to society, and it's not what society just put on them and make them think like, you have to do this. I wanted them to understand what would it look like for them to think outside the box. And so in 2020, I filed for my organization, which is EOS, stands for Everyone Has a Story. And I got my 501c3 letter in March last year. So we really kind of hit the ground running last year. And it has been moving so fast, we're already working with over 400 kids. We have the minister in Jamaica want us to work with another 4,000 kids. So there's a lot of opportunities right now. We're just trying to get funding figured out, but we're getting there slowly. And I understand the race is not for the swift. You know, you just got to understand what that looks like and try to fit in and run with what that looks like. You know, a lot of this is not going to be given to us. A lot of times people are going to come and say this and say that. It's not easy. Not even a little bit, not even close. But you got to have faith and you got to believe. And you believe in whatever you're pursuing is going to happen, because you're telling the universe, this is going to happen, this is what I'm going to be doing. And you being persistent at that, it's going to happen. So I know I kind of went choppy on you guys a little bit, but if you guys get a chance, you type in Cornell Bunton. There is wicked stuff, articles, New York Times, every article you can think of. You just type in Cornell Bunton, you will see something written on me about my journey and what that looked like. I want to thank you guys, yeah?
At the end, he said, Google me, baby. Okay, so our next speaker, many of you already know her, so it's hard to introduce her. But we know that we have a leader in the community, especially in the educational format. And it's so funny to segue between the two, because Mr. Cornell is working with the youth as someone coming out of incarceration, temporary incarceration. And we've done events together speaking to juvenile correctional students. And then here we have someone who, for how long? Over 2 decades?
I taught in the public schools in Lake County for 13 years, and then I was on the board for 4.
Boom. So right here, so we're almost 20 years of servicing the youth in Lee County, seeing hands-on some of that, school to prison pipeline that occurs within our community. She can speak on her own perspective and testament in education. If you guys give a round of applause to Ms. Gwen, everyone.
Thank you. As I listen, thank you, and happy Black History Month, everyone. As I listened to the other 3 speakers, and I thought, where does it all begin? It begins with education. A couple of words I want you to think about: academics, achievement, involvement, discipline, incarceration, and a good and prosperous life. That is the way it flows. I want to tell you a quick little story, and I'll call him Johnny. People used to ask me, why do you always say Johnny when you're talking about kids? Because Johnny can be black, can be white, can be Asian, can be Indian, can be anything. Johnny is just Johnny. Johnny is a student. And when he started school, he didn't go to preschool because his parents really didn't know about putting him in the pre-K. They didn't know the importance of it. Today, a lot of the organizations and the schools are really pushing pre-K because they know that is the formation. Yes. That is the nugget that gets them started on their way. So he didn't go to preschool. Excuse me. So when he got in kindergarten, he was still trying to learn how to spell his name, because in his family, they lived in a 2-bedroom duplex, and the cousins were there, and there were at least 10 people that lived in this 2-bedroom duplex. And when he went to school, already a little bit behind because he didn't know what some of the other students knew. Then by 3rd grade, and if you don't know this, this is very important, there is testing that is done for students in 3rd grade. And if you do not excel by 3rd
grade, did even after they found out that it was fabricated, I was writing. And so I used to write in high school, and it was like that came back to me. Like I needed to tap back into that because I had that skill. You know, I used to write for the school, and so I would buy writing pads. And in there I wrote 4 books before I came out. And I tell myself, when I get out, what I would do is try to get one of these books published. I got out, I had no money, I had a child support bill on me, which didn't even make sense because I'm in jail and I was accumulating child support while I was in jail. The kid's mom put me on child support and she barely was even seeing my kids, but she was able to fabricate a story to get the system to take care of her. And then when I got out, the system wanted me to pay them back. And I said, well, where am I going to get the money? They said, we don't care where you get the money. If you can't pay the money back, we're going to take your license, and after we take your license, we're going to put you back in jail. I'm like, this is terrible. So finally, someone at Applebee's, you know, decided, you know what, we're going to give him a job because he seemed like he's intelligent or whatever, and so they gave me a job there as a server. And every tip I made, I saved it, and I used it to pay back my child support, which is almost $10,000. So we did that, and I realized that my expertise and like my field of education, where I went to college, spent all this money to get these degrees, whatever, no one was hiring me because I still had that hanging over my head. It wasn't expunged from my name. So those are like the challenges I was going through, and then I just had that job. So I had a lot of time. So what I did was I said, you know what, all these stories in my head, I just want to write them out. I want to put them on paper, and I did. And then from there, my attorney said, good news, they will give you a hearing to possibly expunge the record. And that happened the following year. The record got expunged. And then 3 months later, I'm in church, fell out of my chair, and everyone was trying to figure out what happened. I died. I went into a cardiac arrhythmia. I was on the floor for 16 minutes. The only reason they didn't put me in a body bag was because the pastor was arguing with the people that was trying to put me in a bag, saying he doesn't want me to be wheeled out of this church in a bag. And in that conversation, I came back. And this was 3 months after Lion with No Roar had actually got an opportunity to be self-published by Author House. But in that journey, in that moment, and I won't go on it too much because I only got limited time, and I write about it in my book, Escaping a Life Sentence. There's a lot of stuff that unfolded that talked about my future and all these different things. But from there, I knew that my job wasn't done. I needed to reach people. I needed to tell a story because everyone has a story. And for me, my goal was, because of all the things that I saw in jail and the guys that I met from prison, I said I want to try to help some of these young men that are now falling in these different situations and getting put in a system, and then they're just lost in the system because that's all they know. It's their environment now. So once my books kind of start taking off, and I'm just fast tracking for you guys a little bit here. I'm now at 9 published books. And that happened from my book Lion with No Roar. We went on a tour in England, and I had a publisher said, you know what, we like the story is, we like how you narrate it, and we want to pick up this book. We want to sign it. So they did that. They loved the way I spoke to the kids. And from there, it just, more doors open, opportunities was happening after opportunities. And then my literary agent said, hey, you need to show your readers that you can really write. And so we decided to put out my memoir. And that was #1 for like a month. And then we put out an action fiction book, which went all the way to #2. Didn't make it to #1. But then I had another book that came out after that book that went #1 as well. So I got excited, you know, and now I was like, okay, you know what? I think I might be able to speak on what's going on. And so I had kind of I wrote some things down in my journal, and I said, whenever I have the opportunity, I want to open an organization that will help youth to understand that there's another way, that they can add value to society, and it's not what society just put on them and make them think like, you have to do this. I wanted them to understand what it would look like for them to think outside the box. And so in 2020, I filed for my organization, which is EOS, stands for Everyone Has a Story. And I got my 501c3 letter in March last year. So we really kind of hit the ground running last year. And it has been moving so fast, we're already working with over 400 kids. We have the minister in Jamaica want us to work with another 4,000 kids. So there's a lot of opportunities right now. We're just trying to get funding figured out. But we're getting there slowly. And I understand the race is not for the swift. You know, you just got to understand what that looks like and try to fit in and run with what that looks like. You know, a lot of this is not going to be given to us. A lot of times people are going to come and say this and say that. It's not easy. Not even a little bit, not even close. But you got to have faith and you got to believe. And you believe in whatever you're pursuing, it's going to happen because you're telling the universe, this is going to happen, this is what I'm going to be doing. And you being persistent at that, it's going to happen. So I know I kind of went choppy on you guys a little bit, but if you guys get a chance, you type in Cornell Bunting. There is wiki stuff, articles, New York Times, every article you could think of. You just type in Cornell Bunting, you will see something written on me about my journey and what I look like. I want to thank you guys, yeah?
At the end, he said, Google me, baby. Yeah. Okay, so our next speaker, many of you already know her, so it's hard to introduce her. But we know that we have a leader in the community, especially in the educational format. And it's so funny to segue between the two because Mr. Cornell is working with the youth as someone coming out of incarceration, temporary incarceration. And we've done events together speaking to juvenile correctional students. And then here we have someone who, for how long? Over 2 decades?
I taught in the public schools in Lee County for 13 years, and then I was on the board for 4.
Boom. So right here, so we're almost 20 years of servicing the youth in Lee County, seeing hands-on some of that, school to prison pipeline that occurs within our community. She can speak on her own perspective and testament and education. If you guys give a round of applause to Ms. Gwen, everyone.
Thank you. As I listen, thank you, and happy Black History Month, everyone. As I listened to the other 3 speakers, and I thought, where does it all begin? It begins with education. A couple of words I want you to think about: academics, achievement, involvement, discipline, incarceration, and a good and prosperous life. That is the way it flows. I want to tell you a quick little story. And I'll call him Johnny. People used to ask me, why do you always say Johnny when you're talking about kids? Because Johnny can be black, can be white, can be Asian, can be Indian, can be anything. Johnny is just Johnny. Johnny is a student. And when he started school, he didn't go to preschool because his parents really didn't know about putting him in the pre-K. They didn't know the importance of it. Today, a lot of the organizations and the schools are really pushing pre-K because they know that is the formation.
Yes.
That is the nugget that gets them started on their way. So he didn't go to preschool. Excuse me. So when he got in kindergarten, he was still trying to learn how to spell his name because in his family, they lived in a 2-bedroom duplex. And the cousins were there, and there were at least 10 people that lived in this 2-bedroom duplex. And when he went to school, already a little bit behind because he didn't know what some of the other students knew. Then by 3rd grade, and if you don't know this, this is very important, there is testing that is done for students in 3rd grade. And if you do not excel by 3rd grade in reading and in math, you're pretty much doomed. Because from that point on, you're playing catch up. From 3rd grade, and you've got to go all the way to 12th. That's a long time. So, as he got into 3rd grade, problems with reading, so he was in remedial classes. When he came home and brought his grades, and he had A's and B's, his parents were like, oh, look, you're doing so good. But they didn't realize it was in remedial. He was getting an A in a reading class in 4th and 5th grade, and he was doing 3rd grade work. That's what people don't understand. So he goes on, he gets into middle school, and in middle school, I taught middle school for 1 long year. It takes a special person with a special heart and a special patience that I guess I didn't quite have to stand at the door every morning. And Susie comes to the door one morning. Hi, Miss G. How are you doing today? I'm fine. Next morning, hi, Susie. And it's like, okay, I want the other Susie back, but anyway. So he goes through middle school. And things get really tough for kids in middle school because there's a lot of social pressure and peer pressure that Johnny didn't even really know about. Now remember, at home, there's no one basically at home at night saying, did you do your homework? Let's sit down and read a book. Nobody's doing that. So in middle school, they're sitting in his class and they're reading round robin, everybody around, and he has counted already that in 2 more people, she's going to call on me to read. I can't read this. I don't recognize the words. I'm going to be embarrassed. And I don't want my peers to know. I don't care about that adult standing up there. My peers are going to laugh at me and make fun of me because I can't read. So within the next 5 minutes, anybody in here teachers know, Johnny is going to cut a rug. Johnny will curse you out like you've never been cursed out before, rather than have him read and be embarrassed by his peers. So Johnny gets sent out of the room. Or the teacher's like, no, you're not leaving. No, you can't go to the restroom. And he says, but I'm going anyway. So he lopes out of the room. They call security. Now Johnny is a discipline problem because Johnny left the room. No one has asked why Johnny left the room. Nobody has asked him that. So then he also misses the rest of the lesson. And then because the teacher, he comes back and says to the teacher, why did you do that? Why did you send me out? The teacher says, I feel threatened. I'm going to write you a referral. Johnny then gets an out-of-school suspension for 3 days. He already can't read. And you're taking away his education for 3 days. So Johnny goes along, he gets into high school. Same thing. He goes into high school reading at a 3rd grade level. That, my friends, is a true story. Having taught, having been on the school board, I asked over and over again on the school board, there is a correlation between discipline and academics. If you can't learn, you're going to be a discipline problem. It just goes together. And I have tried to get them to do that thorough correlation and let the world know that. Still not out there as clearly as I want it, but I'm still working. I'm not on the school board, but I tell you, I'm still working for children in education. So we want to look at 3 things. Hope, inclusion, and opportunity. We've got to give children and their parents hope. One of the things I'm working on is not empowering the educators to go out and get the parents and bring them in. I want to educate the parents and the community to go into the education realm and tell them what needs to be done for our children. So giving them hope, including everyone in the conversation. I fought for 4 years for the school district to not ever send out any type of information that was above 6th to 7th grade reading level. I fought for it. Not that and one person said, oh, you don't want to dumb it down. It's not dumbing it down. If I have a PhD, why should I have to read something and translate it in my mind? Make it simple and plain so everyone can read it, everyone understands it, and everyone becomes a part of it. An opportunity. Give an opportunity for those children. They may be good at sports, but they can't read. And the only reason they're getting help is because if you don't get their grades up, they can't play for you in the Friday night football game. That's sad. So anyway, I could go on, but incarceration, and where does it all end up? Johnny gets out of high school, he gets a certificate of completion, not a diploma. He has no skills, he has no abilities, and he still can't read. And there you go. Thank you. Musa. Yeah. Wes is someone, you know how they talk about people to watch? This is people to watch in Lee County. And all of the people are here. But he, like many people do not do, see a vision and go after it. And he is working very hard to spread not only about economics and wealth and education, but he has opened a new a paper I call the Freedom Press. And he's
the Kingdom Press.
Kingdom Press, Freedom Press, Kingdom Press. And he is going to tell you all about all the things he does. Watch him, help him, get involved with him, and follow him on this journey. Wes.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate it. Wayne Gittins, one more time. All this talk about, us, our community, the people in our community that don't get the right education, growing up into life, and end up in the prison system, coming back out to go right back in. And I thank you, Myrtle October, for putting this together because this is needed for our community. And for our community, what I want to say is, I want to get some interaction with you guys. How many of you all read? How many of you all read every day? And do you have a purpose of reading every day? Okay. Here's what I want to say to people that may not be in that space. All right? Don't sleep on your mind, because your mind's already sleeping on you. I don't think y'all heard me. Don't sleep on your mind, for your mind is already sleeping on you. Here's what you do. Empower your mind for one day. Your mind will empower you. And if you ask me, how should we go about this, Wes? You're going to say, great question. We read, we learn, we research, to therefore discover we. Y'all repeat after me, actually. We read, we learn, we research, to therefore discover we. And when you flip that W upside down, we is me. We is me. Y'all say it with me. We is me. And if you ask me how often should we practice reading, Wes? Every second, every hour, daily, for the rest of our lives. For the rest of our lives, Wes? Yes, for the rest of our lives. We're not only gathering new information as we read, but we are developing our mind with new ideas and concepts that we may never have thought about if we didn't read. And look, I understand, I know we all read. But why are we reading for exactly? Are we reading to self-improve on our imperfections, flaws, self-esteem? Or are we reading to have more words when we're talking to folks? Or are we reading to develop a new way of thinking and becoming? And let us answer this question as well. What is our purpose for reading? Think to yourselves. What is my purpose for reading? And just so you know, the more you read, the more opportunity you get to walk into your purpose, if you don't already have one. It is also a methodical way to start getting ahead quickly in life. The sooner you read, the closer you get to solving your problems. It's not enough to rely on this God-given brain and way of thinking. No, it's not enough. What if I think it is off? What if I think it is wrong and we don't know better? Now, how could we know what's better if we don't know what better even looks like? And what is the bar? Better than our parents? For the most part, our parents winged it. Better than our environment? The environment they allow us to grow up in was designed to keep us in a constant cycle of hardship, which allow us to fall prey to mental health issues, depression, all leading to a potential suicide. Not reading allows your mind to fall prey to all of that. Now let me ask you a very important question. How do we get to where we think we want to go? And the key word here is think. And as a people, it is something I truly believe that we haven't done since Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We're living on it right now. No offense. But how do we get this brain to start thinking and thinking fast? How? And as I raise my hand, it means I have a solution. Self-education. That's how. Go read about a man who turned his whole country around with one speech and one dream. Go read about a man who created a social media that brought the whole world together under one website. Go read about a man who made billions of dollars selling books online and is now looking at space for his next conquest. Go read about a businessman with businesses like Tesla and SpaceX, who's actually taking us into space right now. Go read about the first black man to become president of these United States of America. Go read about a woman who infused the phrase black girl magic in her vein and became our very first black and woman vice president of that same country. Go read about one of the greatest lawyers that this land has ever produced, a man who built his whole entire career dedicated to desegregating America, took America's most famous and Supreme Court case, Brown versus Board of Education, and won. And in 1967, that same American hero was appointed to the highest court of this land as one of 9 Supreme Court justices and as the first black person to have ever done that. Read about him. He was known as Mr. Civil Rights. Go read about a godly woman who took America by storm as a journalist and a philanthropist, helping shape the lives of young black women and campaigned to lock up child abusers, and still managed to create one of our longest running and #1 hit talk shows that lasted over 25 years, and one day woke up and gave everyone in her audience cars. Go read about a man who was in and out of jail his whole entire childhood with nothing to live for, but somehow managed to become a pastor, built the church to inspire his entire community. Now, why can't we read about you one day? Why not read about you someday in the same breath as some of these greats? Why not? Deep down inside of you, I need you all to answer me. What makes you so different from those people? Is it heart? Or is it fear of the status quo? I say it's both. It's definitely both. I say all this to say, if you're stuck, you're in a rut, open up a book and read. Get ideas and solutions from somewhere else. You see, the more I read, the more solutions I have for whatever problems that arises in my life. I can always fend for myself. I can always fend for myself because I have information. Information like emotional intelligence to keep me from falling prey to mental health issues. Information on real estate, stocks, cryptos, NFTs that has helped me create enough passive income to live the lifestyle of my choice. You too have a choice. And that's your power. Believe you me, that's your power. And let me tell you something about Superman. Superman is just Clark Kent if he doesn't use his powers. Use your power. And I know some of you may be thinking still, what is your power, you ask? I see you. What is your power, you ask? I tell you. Is this thing over your shoulders, sitting right on top of your neck, and not reading is your kryptonite. Read.
Alright, I'm gonna read more.
What's in the audio books?
Is the audio books count? Audio books count? Okay, guys. So what we're gonna do is this last part. We're actually at the end of it, but I definitely want to give an opportunity for the people who sat in to speak for a moment. I have one person. Mr. Gino, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Gino, could you stand?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to get an opportunity for the people in the audience to speak or ask questions. We ask you to keep it concise and short because we are going a little bit over time. So if you see me do one of these, it's not a rude thing. I just got to keep it moving, all right? Mr. Gino, could you go?
How you doing? My name is Gino Pringle. I'm gonna make this quick. I like everything that I heard the three people say. I came here to listen because I'm that guy she was talking about. Grew up not reading, mother died when I was a dope fiend, my father was a drug dealer, I've been in prison. I'm not even from Florida. I'm from Connecticut. And one thing I heard y'all talk about that I didn't hear up there, y'all want everybody to change. I didn't hear nobody talk about God. God is the power where he at. God is the power in my life. I don't care about all the rich people, all the businesses they got, and all that other stuff. My job is to save brothers in jail, because I've been there. I got a 35-year-old in Connecticut right now selling drugs. I'm trying to save my son. I'm so dedicated to this life because I'm not even from Fort Myers, but I'm here to fight for these brothers that have been in jail. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've been in your Lee County system. Everybody want to change the people, change the system. Because you know why? I've been in a Connecticut jail, and I've been in a Florida jail, and your laws are so different that in Connecticut you can have 20 felonies. They'll erase all your felonies to make your life good. In Florida, all you need is 2 felonies, and they will only erase the ones that's the lightest, not the worstest, because you know why? You will never get your life back again in Florida when you got a felony, and I know that. So that's the real deal of the system here. When I went in your system, in Connecticut, if you get arrested, you get charged right there and they let you get a bond or they let you go. But in Florida, they got 20 days to hold you and don't even charge you, but people don't know the difference because they've never been to another state to understand the different laws somewhere else. Florida treat people the way they're because this is Florida. I'm not from here. I've been in the system here. We need to change the system. You keep trying to change the people. You talking about education, I love you, but the government trying to take the books out of school right now. Come on, let's talk about the system. Y'all, listen, I'm a realtor. I never did nothing in Florida, criminal-wise. It took me 18 months to get my real estate license just because I got a felony in Connecticut. It don't got nothing to do with Florida, but because I'm not going to use no race card, because I don't care about that. My Bible is good and bad people, not black and white. I'm a good person. I had to prove that to get my real estate license. But why do I got to prove to another state something I did 20 years ago in another state? The system.
Can I please?
I'm leaving because if we're not talking about God and changing, I'm not with it.
No, please don't leave.
Don't leave. Have a seat. Have Ms. Gwen give it up.
My brother.
I'm diehard about my.
No, Gino, respectfully, that was on point. Could you give a chance for a rebuttal real quick?
Yeah.
Mr. Cornell, Ms. Gwen, give me 1 second.
Let me just, that's why I said Google me, because I didn't get to really dive out. But my own stories about God, bro. I died. I don't know if you heard when I said that, because I maybe didn't acknowledge God with what I'm saying, but I want you to understand, even my service that I work with these kids, we instill that in them, helping them understand that. This is how faith comes in. And I know you heard me say faith. You got to have faith and you got to believe. And then you got to be persistent in order for it to happen. One of the things I've learned about here from being in the system and coming out right now is where you got to try to understand the change that you can bring. Because for change to happen, you got to do it yourself first and let other people see it and try to be that model. We are role models to a lot of these youths that don't understand what that looks like. Same I do with my kids. My son's in Germany right now as an engineer for the Army. And one of the things he looked up to me and he said, Dad, I appreciate everything you instilled in me. So I want you to understand, we know all this, man. Just what Wes came up and talked about reading. This is one of the big things we do with my organization called EOS, is helping kids to understand the importance of information. Because when you're knowledgeable on things, you know more. You're now in the know. You can do things that a lot of other people wouldn't tell you because they didn't know.
Ms. Gwen?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to address exactly what you're saying. That if people, you said don't change, and God is in all of it. You have to look at my notes. Every time I get ready to speak, I write LTWOMN. It reminds me, let the words in my mouth. I've written it 3 or 4 times already before I stood up there and opened my mouth. So that I don't say what I think, but what I'm supposed to say.
Right, thank you.
4 years I sat up there on that board, and I was a voice they did not want to hear.
The truth.
But I brought out, and people said to me, well, you need to choose your battles. Okay, so which one? Am I going to choose the portables? Am I going to choose the teachers? Am I going to choose academics? I can't pick. So all of it is important. When you talk about government and Florida and all of that, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe 4, in December, there was a legislative agenda. They were meeting in Tallahassee. They were doing preliminaries for the laws that they were going to pass. They were supposed to get back together again in March to pass those laws. Less than 10 days after they finished that session, they called a special session. You only need 20% of the legislators to write a written letter in order to do a special session. They called a special session. It only has to be advertised for 7 days. And if you go and watch the Florida channel, if you want to see what's going on, then you will know. They went in the end of January, 1st of February, and passed all the laws that they were supposed to pass in March. Why? Because if you wanted to go up there and talk about it, you couldn't.
Yeah, I know.
It's already done. But these are the things, when I sat up there on that board and watched people parade in front of the school board, and there were not enough people that had a differing opinion. That's what we've got to do. It is the people, in empowering the people to go into the places they need to go.
Thank you.
Young lady?
I was gonna say thank you to all you guys, the county sheriff, Wes, I'm sorry, I couldn't
Cornell
pronounce your
Bunton.
name. Cornell, but thank you so much. I was gonna say, definitely God is within all of them. I watched from the beginning to the end. And I definitely understand your frustration because I am married to a felon, and a lot of people don't talk about being a wife or a significant other to a felon. It is hard, but I will also say that the change is within me, because sometimes he can get frustrated because of stumbles that he runs into. But I'm doing my best to continue to read, to, make sure that I can push through for him. And I feel like that's what they're doing too, the panelists. They're, in 2019, they opened up an outreach program in Lee County. That's a step forward.
I would tell them to shut up. Not in a rude way, but only because a lot of people that when they are released from jail, when they go in and they try to have those conversations with their employers, they don't know how to handle themselves. So they go in already tripping themselves by saying, I just got released, or, I was in prison, I just got released from prison. So the reason why I tell them to be quiet and don't tell me that it's none of my business, because honestly, truly, it's not none of my business. Allow me to process your background. It's a lot of organizations around here that will hire someone that's recently released from jail. Honestly, at UPS, I hired someone who had an attempted murder charge, but it was the degree of the charge that they had and how long ago the charge was. I also teach them when they're doing their resume. I sit down, I do the resume with them. If they were incarcerated, but if they did any type of employment with them, if they swept the floors, they cut hair, they did commissary, whatever, I then show them how they can use that as a workable skill on their resume, and that's how they're able to get a job when they come out, when they're interviewing. I have them have a conversation with them, but they don't necessarily say, yeah, I was an inmate doing this job, it's I did this job. So those are some of the services and stuff that I give out to everyone, but definitely to those that are incarcerated just like her. My husband, he's a felon. He got his last felony back in 2008, so I know a lot of different loopholes with me making sure that he's able to find employment, also keeping him, from getting back into more trouble and so on and so forth. So that's the only thing that I can keep going.
What's the name of your company again?
Curriculum.
Can I make one comment to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from with how you, with the HR piece. you also have to be very, very, very careful. I just got a call last week of someone that had been working in school district for 20 years, and they went back 20 years and plus and found that they had some type of a felony that they had been cleared of. They were working and they were released. So
I'm a bit different because I'm an actual recruiter manager. So I have my master's in human resource management. When I do the stuff, it is certain stuff that you have to get approved, and that's probably what did not happen. So when we receive a background, it comes back just like the street lights, red, yellow, and green.
no, and I get that. I'm just saying that some companies or organizations will work with you with that, and others will not. This person had been cleared, everything was on record, they knew about it, and I have seen a couple of situations with the school district where they come back and say, oh, you didn't tell us this. Well, I told you that I did have a felony, but you didn't say this, so now you're out.
Well, we don't ask those
Right.
questions anymore
So,
about the felony on the applications. But
So
what I'm
it's
saying is
almost-
when I process a background, I have to, if it comes back yellow or red, then I give the first approval, my regional manager, and then the corporate office. But what I do is I speak for that individual.
So what needs to happen is some of these people that are coming out looking for jobs need to know which companies are going to help and be friendly to me.
Yeah, and I provide that service as well.
Okay, and give them a list of companies and don't
Yes.
waste their time
We
going
do
to
that
the
too.
other.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I can literally riddle them off. As soon as they tell me what charge that they have, I can tell them exactly, hey, I know this company will accept you, but this one will not. So they get frustrated when they're just released. They need to find a job. They have the stresses, like he said, when it comes to probation. You need to hurry up and find a job where you can get sent back. I just had someone that was released, got out, had a job, been working the job for 6 months. His probation officer manager came and told him that he could no longer work for the company because the company that he was working for, the owner that's not even in the state of Florida, has a felony on their record. So then I had to assist him with getting out of that because if he leaves that job, then he has 30 days to find another one or be sent back.
Right.
So I'm telling you, this is something that I definitely do. I had to do a lot of this stuff when I first met my husband, so I won't say a pro or expert, but
You're an expert. You're actually an expert. Can we have the young lady in the back? Did you have anything? Okay, Colonel.
So this is what I want to say to just leave with you guys. There's a lot of organization here that are trying. We see the issues. Yes, see the issues. What Myrtle is starting up here called Tree to Thriving. She see the issues, brother. When you guys see us post, share. Share, man. If you don't understand what the organization is about, read up on us. I can tell you guys, I have yet to get any funding to help my organization. I've already helped over 400 kids. I've spent $28,000 of my own money to help these dudes because I see the need and the necessity in helping these kids, because I believe there's one day we're going to have a world where at least 60% of our youths understand that they have a value and they can add value to society, and something will come into existence that wouldn't come into existence without them being a part of it. And that's what we're doing right now. So as you guys hear us, help us, man, help us. We need help.
All right, so in conclusion, I want to give it back to Myrtle in a second, but the idea is that we want to be able to pull resources, experiences, and knowledge together. You know, a lot of times in this community and a lot of other communities around the United States, people with like causes or like missions find reasons not to work together because of who they're with or their backgrounds, but that's actually against the purpose of why we started it in the first place. If you care about what the things that you care about, then you do what's necessary to get it done. And a lot of times what that means is just taking a lunch or writing a check or sharing information on how a person can get employment. Sometimes the option when you've been released, and I can think of people specifically in my life and my family, sometimes the mission is to get a nice paying job. Sometimes the mission is to get out of the area. You can't be here anymore. And other times it's to start a business. Hey, you need to go into entrepreneurship because your family here, you got kids here, you can't leave. because you can't raise your kids in another state. You know, there's so many different things, and the circumstances will change for each person. But for those of us in the room and those who have the connections, whether you're teaching young people to stay on track, to not become incarcerated and go through the institution, or whether you're helping a parent stop their child from making a mistake. Maybe your mission is to not go after the children, but to go after the parents. Because as you heard Ms. Wynn speak, you know, that whole cycle of her story started off with a parent who couldn't go home and read a book with their child. Just reading the book and preparing them for 3rd grade has a monumental effect. So the small things that we do and contributing in your way, whatever your way is, respecting others around you, will do the most. So I think we all need to collaborate and be on one accord in that area, coming from different places. I appreciate our speakers. Can we give them a round of applause? In addition, let's give Ms. Myrtle October, who put this together once again. So her organization is called Threat to Thriving. I'm gonna beat up Cornell real quick because he threw that off a little bit. But there's a lot of information going on. He got passionate. He was like, boom. But once again, this is another opportunity to get it done. And if you put something together, whether it's a project or if you have a bunch of young men meet with you, or you go down, it seems that you're focused on the system. If you go down to City Hall and you change one thing, just one thing, that's the impact. That could be your mission. Your mission may be 1 or 1,000. Or your mission could be to inspire the one person that can inspire the 1,000. You know, so you never know. With that being said, it's been a blessing speaking with you guys. I've enjoyed myself. I hope that you have as well. Feel free to network, have snacks. Please follow up with our speakers. Ms. Wynn, did you want to say anything?
Just one quick thing. One thing I have learned in working in and against the system at times is to use their words to put back to them. They constantly are saying that, felons or whatever need to pay your debt to society. So we need to use those words and saying, okay, how do they pay their debt to society if you won't give them a job? It's just like you're saying, you had to pay, child support. But if you can't get any way and have an opportunity, you can't pay your debt to society. So ask people, redefine, ask them, what do you mean by pay your debt to society? What does that mean to you? And use their words, because they're the ones that said it, so put it back.
Thank you,
Thank you. We're ready for the next one in April. That will be right here, hopefully you're here. April, I look forward to having you all. Remember, Threat to Thriving School is African American men. First time with you. Thank you for coming.
You got anything local though?
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
Good.